they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up.
Welcome back to the channel, everybody. And in a wild turn of events, the House and the Senate yesterday both voted to pass a bill to release the Epstein files to the American public. Amazing. But the entire country is looking at this quite suspiciously, wondering, our politicians who can't agree on literally anything to the point where they just shut the government down for no reason, all of a sudden overnight, kumbaya, come together and all unanimously vote to release the files. I wonder why. Oh, because there was fine print in the files we didn't read. Our politicians are very, very crafty, and we're going to talk about that in the video today on why you and I will never, ever see the real version of the Epstein files. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Helps the channel. So we got a lot to talk about. First thing we got to talk about is why the government is never going to allow us to ever see these real files. Two, how they're going to go about blocking the files, or at least the important stuff with the fine print that they put in the bill. And then last, we're going to talk about the most important thing that none of the mainstream media wants to talk about, and what all of this really centers around at the end of the day is the fact that he was an intelligence asset. And we'll show you exactly how we know that's true with all the new emails that have come out. So first thing to understand, why we'll never see the real files. I know everybody is caught up right now in the Trump. Is Trump in the files? Is he not in the files? That's all anybody on the left and the right can talk about. I'm going to tell you right now up front, it's pretty much irrelevant. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, this is extremely low-hanging fruit when it comes to the actual Epstein files. And the House tipped their hand, and Mike Johnson talked about this. So we're going to skip a little bit ahead, and I'm going to show you this comment that Mike Johnson made.
All right. Number 5, national security concerns, okay? The discharge requires the Attorney General to release within 30 days, quote, classified information to the maximum extent possible. This ignores the principle that declassification should always rest, and always has rested, with the agency that originated the intelligence. Why? So that they can protect their critical sources and methods. It is incredibly dangerous to demand that officials or employees of the DOJ declassify materials that originated in other agencies, in intelligence agencies.
So this is what it all centers around. It's not about Trump. It's not about Bill Clinton. He said it right there. We can't give up our intelligence apparatus methods and sources. What that really means is that something we all already knew, right? Was that what we can't let the American people see is that our own government was not only privy to, complicit in, but probably helped facilitate an international child sex trafficking ring that was used to compromise foreign governments, foreign entities, and our own politicians. That's what they can't let you see. It's not about Bubba. It's not about Trump. It's about the fact the American people will learn our own government helps traffic children. And so to avoid this, they wrote a provision into the bill, which will allow Pam Bondi the ultimate power and discretion of all people, and we'll talk more about her in a second. She'll have the power to remove anything that she deems classified, compromising, anything that now that they opened an investigation into the files, anything that falls under that new investigation, she's not going to have to release, and all of these other things they won't have to release. So Mike Johnson had this placard up behind him right before the vote yesterday so everybody could see, and it was very telling if you were paying attention. These are some of the other things that Pam Bondi will have the discretion to block in the release of the files. Number 1, victim privacy does not adequately protect victims. Okay, this one, you could say, yeah, that's a good thing. However, who was there at Washington, D.C. yesterday with Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene demanding the release of the full unredacted files? The victims. So This is just going to be another excuse for them to redact. Number 2, and this is the most disgusting one that Mike Johnson really felt the need to hammer home yesterday, and we'll take a look at that in a second. It says innocent persons risk disclosure of non-credible allegations, creating new victims. Not new female victims that were trafficked. These poor billionaires who were friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Those are the new victims, as he said here.
Doing this and requiring this to come out could ruin the reputations of completely innocent people, such as those who have may just have known Epstein but knew nothing of his crimes, or whose names he exploited. Think of this, innocent people whose names he exploited and used to try to get close to his intended victims. Their names may be in these files, and they had nothing to do with this.
So these new poor billionaire victims that were friends with Jeffrey Epstein, God forbid the American people find out about that. And he even said himself, you know how they'll decide who's innocent and whose files will be redacted or removed completely on release for this to protect them? Anyone the FBI deems innocent. This guy's going to decide who's innocent. Great. Number 3, fails to adequately protect against the release child essay materials. So all those thousands of videos and pictures that Pam Bondi says she's seen, nope, none of those will be released. Not that they couldn't actually just black out victims, so we would have no idea, we couldn't see anything, and just have faces of these billionaires who were committing the acts so everybody could know who they were and we could put them in prison. Nope, sorry, you won't be getting those either. Number 4, provides no protection for future whistleblowers. Okay. And number 5, as we come back to the one that it's all about at the end of the day, declassification requires release of information that could reveal confidential methods and sources. So we should ask the government, although we really don't need to because they just told us, why would the Epstein files have classified intelligence apparatus methods and sources in it? Why would it be a national security risk? Why would anything in the Epstein files be a national security risk? Well, that's right, because he was an intelligence asset. And the American people get to find out exactly what their government has been up to. And they will never, ever, ever tell you that. Why? The government is not going to tell on itself. These people are not going to turn themselves in. That's not how any of this works. And again, let's go back to Pam Bondi, because she's going to be the ultimate authority on not releasing all of those things we just mentioned. So as you see here, breaking Epstein files legislation allows for Attorney General Pam Bondi to withhold or redact any material that would jeopardize national security or an active investigation, which there is one now. So as it says here, under the bill, the Attorney General may redact information that contains personally identifiable details of victims, medical or personal records, or any content involving child SA. The legislation also permits temporary withholding if releasing specific records would interfere with an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, and classified information can also be withheld. So what exactly are they releasing? Do you guys get it yet? Do you see why all of a sudden Donald Trump and all of Republicans overnight in the House and the Senate all said, oh yes, let's vote yes on this now. Well, let's be transparent. Because they're going to withhold everything. They're literally telling us that they're going to do it. And to make it all worse, remember who's in charge of deciding these things? Pam Bondi, who was also the Florida Attorney General for 10 years when Epstein was carrying out all this abuse. And she did absolutely nothing. Brought nothing forward against Epstein in that 10 years. Now she's the one that's in charge of giving us transparency. And so we know what they're going to do. They're going to categorize all of these PDFs as victims, and they won't release anything. And Thomas Massey said it right here.
He's trying to categorize the pedophiles as victims. He's saying, oh, we don't embarrass the people that went to the rape island. We should protect those names against unreliable accusations. Is he calling all of these victims unreliable? They've testified to the FBI. The FBI has these names in their possession. I asked the FBI director in a hearing, have you looked at the documents? No, he trusts everybody that's been there for decades.
So yeah, the FBI gets to decide. And they already decided. Do you remember what Kash Patel said? Let's take a little trip down memory lane to see who's guilty.
You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday. that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
There you go. There's no perpetrators. Kash Patel's already said it. Everyone's innocent. Jeffrey Epstein's the only bad guy. So what do you think you're going to get? And what do you think this release is going to be? There's nobody guilty, according to Kash Patel, who's the one in charge of determining who's innocent or not. But how will we be able to tell if this is successful or not? Well, Thomas Massey talked about it.
I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men, in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up.
So there you go, and I agree. When we see actual rich, powerful people being arrested, let's go back to Pam Bondi, who again is Attorney General, and let's talk about the accountability, because this administration ran on accountability, bringing people to justice. How many arrests have been made? When we talk about COVID, we were promised Fauci, we were promised all these things. January 6th, the pipe bombs, nothing. Butler, Pennsylvania, nothing. The Russia hoax, nothing. There's been no one held accountable for anything. There has been no arrests made for anything. So why would we expect Pam Bondi to all of a sudden lead the charge here? She's the absolute last person. And think about this. Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are the ones that are going to lead the charge on this. Look, now that we know that the real files will never come out, because they just told us that the real files will never come out, let's talk more about why. Okay, so as we talked about before, Epstein, obviously, intelligence asset. For who? I don't know. CIA, Mossad, somebody. We know that. And there's just so much proof to that now that, of course, the mainstream media is completely ignoring. Nobody's talking about it. Yes, you even have outlets like BBC saying that this is all a conspiracy theory, that Jeffrey Epstein was attached to any sort of intelligence apparatus, or that he was working for an intelligence agency like Mossad or the CIA. Interesting, because all these leaked emails sure show us a lot of stuff that doesn't look like some low-level pimp that was just, trafficking people for cash. Here's just a few of the stories, all right? So let's look at a bunch of these, all right? Jeffrey Epstein helped Israel sell a surveillance state to Cote d'Ivoire. Leaked emails show that details behind talks between Cote d'Ivoire and Israel, shepherded by Ehud Barak, who we know all about him through Virginia Griffith's book, and Jeffrey Epstein, which, again, he was the former prime minister of Israel. So as you can see there's Jeffrey with a foreign military. So it says here, Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak were specialists in war profiteering. At the end of his tenure as Israel's defense minister, and after his supposed retirement, Barak embraced a role as a salesman of Israeli security services to embattled governments, opening the door for Israeli intelligence leaders to shape the security apparatuses of several African nations. Does that sound like some low-level, pimp to you? We're talking about dealing in massive, high-level, nation-to-nation war profiteering schemes. So it says here, new details about Epstein's role in Israeli intelligence operations in Africa have emerged from two sets of documents, an archive of leaked emails released by Handala Hacking Group and hosted by nonprofit whistleblower site, distributed denial of secrets, and documents released by the House Oversight Committee last month. The latter set includes Epstein's personal emails and appointment calendars, which provide clear evidence Epstein's involvement in Israel's West African security negotiations in 2012 while Barak was still Israel's defense minister. And here's a bunch of other email stories. Israel spies stayed for weeks at a time with Jeffrey Epstein in Manhattan. Jeffrey Epstein helped broker Israeli security agreement with Mongolia. Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad, how the trafficker helped Israel build a back channel to Russia amid Syrian civil war. Jeffrey Epstein helped Israel sell a surveillance state. Here's some more, as we just talked about. Breaking, Epstein helped Israel overthrow Bashar al-Assad. Explained, Assad being overthrown can consolidate Israeli power in the region, which is exactly what happened with the installment of al-Jilani, who is now basically giving Israel everything they wanted. So again, are we worried about Donald Trump and Bill Clinton being exposed? Or are we worried about the fact that people are going to find out that, Israel's intelligence network, assisted knowingly by our own intelligence apparatuses helped facilitate and run, again, an international child trafficking ring. That's what the files are going to show. And that's what they cannot let you see. And to even some of the crazier stuff, I don't know if you've seen this. Yes, emails talking about how even early Bitcoin development is rumored to have been financed by Jeffrey Epstein, with the emails showing that Epstein potentially was behind the financing of Bitcoin. Why is that a big deal? Well, because there's always been the rumors of who started Bitcoin.
Nobody can explain to me who Satoshi was, the creator of Bitcoin, this mysterious guy who apparently died, but nobody knows who he was. You know, I grew up in D.C. primarily in a government family, so CIA. That's my guess. Can't prove it, but like, you're telling me to invest in something whose founder is like mysterious and has billions of dollars of unused Bitcoin. Like, what is that?
All right, so here's what's going to happen. Here's how I think they're going to roll this whole thing out, guys. I mean, I think the writing's on the wall for us. What they're going to do is Pam Bondi has 30 days, and they just had a government shutdown. Just, you know, now that I'm looking at it, pretty convenient 2 months to allow them a little bit of time to start doing this. What they're going to do is they're going to redact and remove all the files that we talked about. Anything classified, anything that's part of the ongoing investigation, anything that potentially compromises victim security, anything that compromises all these poor, innocent, rich men, again, which Kash Patel said all of them are innocent, and anything that potentially is a national security risk, and anything that reveals methods and sources. So they've already told us that's all of those things we're not going to get. So what are we going to get? We're going to get some low-hanging fruit, like people like Larry Summers, probably David Copperfield, magician, right? Which, I mean, I'm just guessing because Thomas Massey said there was some famous magician. I bet I'll be right that he'll be one of the ones named. People like in Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein, like just low-hanging fruit that they'll be able to take, perp walk potentially, and then they'll be able to tell the American people. Fox News will be able to tell you, look at the most transparent and accountable presidency in U.S. history. And Americans will eat it up. Wow, we got him, boys. While conveniently, none of the people that actually matter will be implicated, and all of the big high side level things, CIA, intelligence apparatus, Mossad level stuff, will be completely removed. So that's what's going to happen. I would almost guarantee it. I might be wrong. We might get every single file and photograph and video completely released. But again, the government does not tell on itself, guys. So that'll be the play. We'll move on like justice was served, and the American people will be none the wiser, except for you guys. So that's going to do it for this one. Catch y'all in the next video.